The biggest mistake I see first grade teachers make on the first day of school is trying to jump right into activities before teaching kids how your classroom works. Because if your kids don't know how to line up or use the bathroom or even sit at the carpet, you're going to spend the next few weeks repeating yourself over and over. So today I'm walking you through exactly what I taught on the first day of first grade, the 10 routines that I never skipped, the activities we did, and the simple systems that helped my classroom run smoothly all year. So let's go. Let's start at the very beginning when kids arrive on the first day of school. And this is where a lot of first day craziness actually starts. You want to greet your kids at the door and make them feel comfortable and let them know that you're really happy that they're in your class. If it's possible, you could help your kids recognize you better before that first day with a postcard or a letter or something, or maybe a meet the teacher event. That way, when they walk through the door, they already see a familiar face. Now, our kids came in sort of staggered as the buses arrived at school. So if that's the case for you too, you can stand at your door and greet your kids and show them where their cubby is as they come in and how to hang up their backpack. My students had what I called their morning chores, and those were really the very first routines that they learned. I had a chart that hung on the wall right outside our classroom, and it had 4 photos on it, which represented their morning chores. They had to hang up their backpack, put their daily folder in the red basket, sign in for lunch to show either buying or packing, and go to the restroom and wash their hands. So we started on that very first day of school. As the kids kind of trickled in, I was waiting for them to show them the morning chores and to walk them through it. If all your kids arrived at the same time, you might want to take them into the classroom, have them all sit down, and then take them out table by table to show them your morning routines, because too many kids at once and it gets kind of chaotic. I really think this routine is important because when you teach kids a morning chores routine, whatever that is for you, they know exactly what to do every day for the rest of the year. And you're not answering, where do I put my folder 25 times every morning? All right. Once all the kids have arrived, it's time for what I think is really the most important routine on the first day of school. And it might sound silly, but trust me, don't skip it. And that's your bathroom routine. I always took my whole class down to the restroom the very first thing, and I would literally walk them through step by step of how to use the restroom. Flushing, washing hands, using paper towels correctly, like throwing them in the trash can and not on the floor, and just all my expectations. You don't want to assume that they know any of these things because they probably don't. And if you teach it on the first day of school, it's going to save you a lot of problems down the road. I think it's really important to do this first thing because one of the things that kids are the most nervous about is, what if I have to go to the bathroom? And so this sort of alleviates their nerves. And I always tell kids that if they have to go to the bathroom, to just ask me and they can go, because the last thing you want is any accidents. All right, the third routine that you want to teach is carpet time. I would talk to them about how to walk to the carpet, and I usually assigned everyone their own spot on the carpet. So we'd head over there and I'd tell them how they should sit with their hands and feet to themselves, how to raise their hand if they had something to say, and how to listen quietly, because carpet time is where you're going to spend a lot of your teaching. And so if your kids don't know what to do there, every lesson really just becomes harder. And don't worry, the first day isn't just about practicing rules all day. We don't want to do that to the kids. So while we were at the carpet, we'd do our next routine, which was our daily calendar routine, because this was something that we would do every single morning. And then after that, you could play some kind of little get to know you activity. A cute one is to have the kids roll a beach ball around the carpet to each other and introduce themselves and maybe tell one thing that they're looking forward to this year. And then while we were at the carpet, I think it's really nice to read a story to, welcome them to school. I have a lot of books that I like for this, but my favorite is First Day Jitters, because it sort of opens up a conversation about how everybody feels nervous on the first day, even teachers. So after we read the story, we'd talk a little bit about how we all felt about coming to school, and then we'd make a little feelings graph to show how we felt. And by this time, I'd say it's probably around 9:15, 9:30, it was time to take a break. You have to remember that kids have been home all summer playing and just doing whatever they want. So it takes time for them to build up their stamina to sit or work for a long period of time. So about this time, I would take them outside on the playground to let them, run around a little bit. And here's another place where teachers can lose a lot of instructional time if they don't teach the routine first. So this is the perfect time for your fifth routine, and that's the recess rules. So here's where you're going to show them where the playground is, explain any rules you have about equipment like the swings or climbing up the slides, stuff like that. Show them what the signal is for lining up and where to line up and how to put away any playground toys. Usually before I let them loose, I would have them practice lining up, quickly as soon as they heard the whistle. And then I'd let them play for about maybe 15 minutes or so. When we came back inside, it was time to show them our sixth routine. And this one, it might be the smallest routine I taught, but it saved me a lot of time later, which was getting a drink from the drinking fountain. Even little things like getting a drink need a routine because you do it every day and they got to do it quickly and quietly. So we practiced lining up, taking a quick drink while I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're done. And then we headed back to class. When we came in, it was the perfect time to do a little writing activity to go with that story that we read in the morning, First Day Jitters. So we would draw a picture of how we felt coming to school, and they would circle the picture that showed their feelings. And then when they finished, I told them that I had a magical drink that was going to take away their nervous feelings, and it was called jitter juice. In my opinion, the first day of school shouldn't be about a big stack of worksheets. You want kids to be having fun and be excited about coming to school because you're really setting the tone for the entire year. So making jitter juice, it wasn't just fun. It made kids feel excited and glad to be at school and glad to be in my class because they knew it wasn't going to be boring and they were going to like it, So that's half the battle on that first day of school, just connecting with the kids. So to make the juice, we'd all gather around the table and we'd mix Sprite, 𝗬𝗏 and the magic ingredient, which was anti-jitterbugs. And they were actually just little candy sprinkles. And we'd mix it all together. They'd have a little snack. I usually got a box of cookies or something. And so we take a little break and, have that snack. On the first day, you really have to give them lots of breaks because they're super antsy. And all they really want to do is play. And so you have to make it be as fun as possible and not really worry about getting into too many academics on that first day. So about this time, it was time for lunch and recess. And so we'd take about 15 minutes to learn the next routine, which was going to lunch. You're going to want to show them how to get their lunchbox or their money, how to line up and walk down the hall. I usually walked my kids through the lunch line area and we'd pretend to pick up a tray and silverware. We'd pretend to carry it to the table. We went through the whole routine step by step because this is really going to cut down on a lot of problems that first day if your class has already practiced it. And then after lunch and recess, I think that's a good time to read the kids another story. They're usually hot and sweaty, so sort of cooling down and listening to a story is a good thing. One of my favorites to read is You're Finally Here by Melanie Watt. It's a really cute book about a little bunny that lives in the book. He's been waiting and waiting for you to get there to read the book. But it's also perfect for talking about how you've been waiting for the kids to get to school and how glad you are that they're there. So after the read aloud, that would lead into our next routine, which was our book boxes. If you do book boxes with your class, which I did, this is a good time to introduce them to your kids. And you might be thinking on the very first day of school, and yep, that's what I did every year. I know some teachers might disagree with me on this one, but I'm here to tell you that it worked great. So before the kids arrived at school, I'd make a book box for every kid, and I would just put about 5 books in them for each kid. Very simple books. They might not be able to read them yet. That's okay. They don't have to be able to read a book perfectly to enjoy it. And so after reading the story to them, I'd say, would you like to be able to read like that one day? And, of course, they'd say yes. And so I'd tell them that I was going to teach them how to do that this year in first grade. And that's when I'd introduce their book boxes to them on that very first day. I told them we were going to learn to build our stamina. And so we practiced reading independently for just 1 minute. And then every day we built that stamina until they could eventually read independently for about 15 or 20 minutes during our small group time. If you want to know more about that, just let me know in the comments below and I can go into more detail in the future about how we did that. It really worked and it was a great routine in our classroom. And then in the afternoon on that first day, we usually would make a little craft. It looked like a cup of jitter juice to go with the story. We do a little shared writing about how to make jitter juice. I can put the link to all those activities down below in the description if you're interested in doing any of that with your class. And then, of course, we take another recess break in the afternoon. Well, by now it's the end of the day, and so it's time to teach routine number 9, which is how to pack up. You're going to want to show them how to get their mail out of the mailbox if they have any, how to put it in their daily folder, put it in their backpack. You want to show them how to clean up any scraps on the floor and put away in their supply box. And then it's time for the final routine, which is dismissal. If you've got kids who get picked up from parents, you want to explain to the kids how that works in your school and then how to line up for buses. You might need to go over bus numbers with the kids and remind them of which bus they ride. We always lined our kids up in the hallway by bus number, and then each teacher would walk a group of kids out to the buses, during those first few days to make sure that everybody got on the right bus. And then after everybody's gone, it's time for one final routine. I know I told you in the beginning that there were 10, but actually I have one more routine, and this one is not for the kids. It's for you. Before you leave, reset your room, straighten your desk, lay out all of your materials for the next day, and get yourself ready because your second day of school self is going to thank you for that. And that's it. You made it through the first day. Next week, I'm going to be talking about all the rest of the things that you should do during the first week of school, other routines to teach and activities that you can do every day. They're going to help you introduce rules and expectations to your kids, but in a fun way. If you're enjoying these episodes, be sure and subscribe so you don't miss any and give it a thumbs up. And until next week, remember to make learning feel like play. Talk to you soon.